Okay, hear me out. This species from so-called Earth is too suspicious. Two contractors were sweeping a walkway to a skyscraper. One was short and scrawny, and the other hunched forward to meet the shorter co-worker's field of view. Shocking. I never imagined you see any species from that backwater be bizarre, Gia, or suspicious. You will see them as I do. You'll see, Gia declared confidently, with a slight disgust. The path had minimum vegetation. The floor was paved with composite ceramic tiles, and a row of exotic sterile plants covered the ceramic surface with sparse shade. This didn't stop the clinical landscape from suffering an occasional clutter from the biomass shedding off from the sterile plant. These two contractors must have stopped the municipal government from planting live specimens of this kind in the first place, but they were there for damage control, not an organizational reform. If the only survivor of a cataclysm seems too clean and eerily unscathed, what would you think about that survivor? The co-worker continued sweeping the walkway. Gia followed the co-worker briskly, looking up at the co-worker's back. Gia continued with her theory of suspicion. I would think it had been a miracle, but something tells me you want to say otherwise. That's exactly what I was thinking, Gork. Unless I can see other victims who had thrown themselves to keep this one survivor safe, I would say something is fishy about this sole survivor. So, you mean you find their existence on Earth suspicious because they survived a cataclysm? Gork, the co-worker, asked back. Two contractors paused their work once again and continued the thought experiment. They didn't just survive a cataclysm, and they are the only surviving species with no close relatives in thousands of reproductive generations. Gia looked up. Their closest living species don't even procreate like them anymore. Humour me, Gork shrugged. You're the one with a xenobiology degree, and I've only seen a handful of species from that death world. The word death world is like the word supervolcanoes. It is just an everyday buzzword for average people to point at something big and scary. The word was not a thing in my training, but one of its heuristic criteria is what I know well. It is a hard evidence of repeated cataclysms? Gork asked. Yep, Gia nodded. She continued. And this species survived such cataclysms more than once. They did so quite well. It now thrives in many different geographic locations on its home planet. Meanwhile, all other species closely related to them vanish from the planet. Maybe it had to do with some dumb luck, or lack thereof, considering all other species that didn't survive, Gork said, scrubbing the yellow stain on the floor. Not so fast, Gia continued, also scrubbing the biomass stuck on the tile surface. They can trade genes and procreate without physical contact. They can clone themselves on rare occasions when no partners are available, with adequate supplies and tools. The range they can exchange genetic information is longer than an average short-range wireless communication link. Heck, they've always been using chemical compounds to fight hostiles for successive generations. Not to mention how they disperse projectiles from bigger bundles to cover more ground, leaving them to be stepped on by unsuspecting civilians. That's oddly on the nose, Gork replied, scrubbing the surface as well. Yes, literally. Gia pinched her nose. Imagine your species is the only one from your home planet with one specific anatomical feature, and this feature makes your species what you are. Something like a centralized bundle of nerve cells, perhaps? Suppose some xenobiologists visited your planet and found all other bioforms with that similar nerve bundle are extinct, leaving your species as the sole survivor within the closest thousands of generations. Was your species lucky? Or did your primitive ancestors have much blood on their limbs? It's 50-50 in my opinion, and that idea makes this species from Earth pretty suspicious. Gia's face contorted in disgust. You don't want to mess with this branch of the Tree of Life. For a moment, Gia and Gork didn't say a word. They kept scrubbing the slimy yellow biomass off the ceramic floor. Gia seemed to hold in minor coughs. Okay, you win. Gork broke the silence first. How does your rant about this species from Earth have anything to do with our decontamination job we are doing here? Gia burst into a manic laughter. After some time, she said, pinching her nose, We are literally scraping off their biohazardous submunitions off the ground. How can I not have a grudge and spin some stories against these yellow stinkers? Any better suggestions? Those clients didn't want to cut these trees down, you know. They still believe these trees are sterile, Gork asked. No, these were not sterile at all, Gia said, waving her hands. But a bunch of maidens from the time they were planted in their places. Next time you meet those clients, go tell them they have only 3 options. 1, cut down these trees, plant something else, possibly from somewhere else than Earth. 2, keep spending more money than whatever these trees have cost them. They will have to hire decontamination contractors like us a baker's dozen times every galactic cycle. 3, scour everywhere in this orbital colony with a connecting ventilation system to here. All for a single bachelor, or should I say, barktular. Tell them these options are in the order of increasing total expenditure. They didn't listen when I told them to cut down these stink bombs on day 1, but maybe someone with a more robust physique should make those dumb clients listen. What if they don't? Gork asked. Tell them we've just found blood agents in this biomass, and demand them hazard pay. Gia made a motion to write a letter on the air. I can write lab reports for that. It will surely scare the crap out of them. Gork stopped scrubbing, and made a blank stare to the floor. It's okay, as long as you don't consume more than a handful of these hard cores in a single setting. Gia scooped up a handful of hard Cs to show Gork. That is, only if you are that kind of strange species who would like to know what is inside this smelly mess. Gia tossed the yellow mush in her hand into a blue bucket. They are dumb enough to plant a row of ginkgo trees next to the so-called minimalist architecture of their local headquarters. This is a prank they deserve.